Hello. Hello, this is George.
Hey, Bonnie.
She's laughing at
It's
me.
acting really. It says.
We're now live. Now we're live?
That's what it said.
Now we're live. We weren't live before?
Apparently not. I don't
What,
know.
were we dead?
I don't know. It's really slow, but that's okay.
Yes, it
We're
seems
just going
like
to go
it's
ahead
real
and do
slow.
it and hope everything's coming out okay.
And this is Adonai's Sanctuary of Truth Classroom. We haven't moved. There we go.
Okay.
And hopefully tonight we're studying Exodus 13. This is where we're going to start. So our first comment is Exodus 13, 17 through 21 or 22 is so interesting. Adonai was doing what we would call a little strategy with the Hebrews. He still hasn't moved.
Don't do that.
My sweetie,
We're coming through.
gonna
Let us know,
read-
guys.
If you're watching, Tom, let me know if we're coming through. My sweetie's going to read Exodus or Shemot 13, verses 17 and 18.
17 and 18.
17 and 18.
After Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not guide them to the highways that goes through the land of the Philistines, because it was close by. God thought that the people, upon seeing war, might change their minds and return to Egypt. Rather, God led the people by a roundabout route through the desert by the sea of Suf, I guess. The people of Israel went up from the land of Egypt fully armed.
Read that last part again.
The people of Israel went up to the land of Egypt fully armed.
Seeing that they might have to fight, just maybe they would rather return to being a slave. Yet we understand by that writing that the video is choppy, but the audio is spot on.
Okay,
Okay,
let's go.
our
Thank you, Tom.
technical advisor just let us know. But anyway, back to they were armed. Fully armed.
Mm-hmm.
And they even stated later on that they could go back to slavery. Now, how would Adonai keep that from happening? The Hebrews were, like I said, fully armed, yet God still had his doubts. Too scared to fight for their freedom? But as you will find out, they like to complain a lot, though.
No.
Joseph was being escorted out of Egypt. Well, his bones were. My sweetie's going to read 13:19.
Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the people of Israel swear an oath when he said, God will certainly remember you, and you are to carry my bones up with you away from here.
They went through Sukkot and traveled to Edom at the edge of the desert, going by the way, well, you might say, the way of the cloud by day and the column of fire by night. That way they traveled, well, they could travel day or night.
Yeah.
We have all heard that the Hebrews were by the sea when Pharaoh caught up with them. Yeah, we know that because we've seen all those movies. But why were they there? And why did Pharaoh come after them? You know what the movies say. Let's find out what the scriptures say. See, the answer is Adonai. And we see that in Shemot, or Exodus. 14 tells that whole story. Yet the real truth isn't exactly what you have in that movie, Moses. Plus, we believe you most likely have never really heard the whole truth from the pulpit either. Now, that's a bad statement. It almost seems like those preachers go from the pulpit, line up more with what the movies say than what the scripture says. Now, we know you're going, most likely you're going, our preacher told us the truth. He would never tell us lies. Have you ever opened your eyes to see the truth? In other words, study the scriptures. In Adonai's letter to us in Shemot or Exodus, we see clearly. That's a good statement. We see clearly in his 14th section of his letter, and most people call it chapter 14. Now, don't just take my word for that. No, we will go through chapter 14 together. Like we usually do, right?
Yes, sir.
How does it start? Read 14:1, please.
Adonai said to Moses.
Why did Adonai say, well, read 14:2.
Okay, be prepared, guys. Tell the people of Israel to turn around and set up camp in front of Pihahiroth, between Migdal and the sea, in front of Baal's Tazfon, camp opposite it by the sea.
What does he say? What did he actually say? Have you ever heard anybody tell you this? Adonai says to the people of Israel, turn around. Turn around and see him coming, I guess. Have you ever heard anybody say that, George?
Never.
And I wrote, we need to hear that again. Turn around. Well, go to 13, chapter 13, 17 and 18 again.
13, 17, and 18.
Yes.
After Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not guide them by the highway that goes through the land of the Philistines, because it was close by. God thought that the people, upon seeing war, might change their minds and return to Egypt. 17 and 18, right?
Yes.
Rather, God led the people by a roundabout route through the desert by the Sea of Suf. The people of Israel went up from the land of Egypt fully armed.
A roundabout route. Now, if they were really running from the Pharaoh, they'd take a direct route to get the heck out of the way. But Adonai had them go a roundabout route. The Hebrews had a mind of their own, you might say. They were not robots. It even states Adonai didn't know if they would change their mind and go back to Egypt if things got too hard, or they became scared of what was ahead of them. Their route was to strengthen them. Now that's a cute statement. Their route was to strengthen them by them seeing again what? What do you think they're going to see again? We believe it's Adonai's power. Now, camp between Migdal and the sea. Pharaoh thinks, well, read 14:3, please, and we'll find out what Pharaoh thinks.
Then Pharaoh will say that the people of Israel are wandering aimlessly in the countryside. The desert has closed in on them.
Think about that. What was on Pharaoh's mind? It tells us in 3, they are wandering aimlessly or wandering around. They haven't a leader like me. Now look at 14:4, please.
I will make Pharaoh so hard-hearted that he will pursue them. Thus I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will realize at last that I am Adonai. The people did as ordered.
They did it. Adonai was using Pharaoh to win glory for whom? Himself. That is in verse 4.
That's what it says.
And that, in all reality, is so interesting. The Egyptians will realize. That's what didn't you just read that? Mm-hmm. The Egyptians will realize. Now read 10:7, please.
Pharaoh's servants said to him, how much longer must this fellow be a snare for us? Let the people go and worship Adonai their God. Don't you understand yet that Egypt is being destroyed?
the line there is Egypt is being destroyed way back then, and now in section 14:4, Egypt will realize that I am Adonai. Think about this. The Israelites were going to get out of Egypt, but the plagues were to show and to prove to the Egyptians who Adonai really was. Read the last part of 4 again, please. 14:4.
I forgot where I start. I'm just going to read 14:4. I want to get it all right.
Okay.
I will make Pharaoh so hard-hearted that he will pursue them. Thus I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will realize at last that I am Adonai. The people did as ordered.
Adonai could have taken Israel out of Egypt any time he wanted, but then Adonai wouldn't have been seen by the Egyptians as Adonai, the Lord God. They would have looked not just a god, but one of the gods of Egypt, the ones the Egyptians had. He wanted them to realize through all the plagues that I am Adonai. In all reality, that wasn't to free the Israelites. It was to show Egypt that you can't worship a false god and not be punished in the end. The same as he's going to be doing right now. But that is a scary thought.
Uh-huh.
Adonai puts the rest of his plan into action. My sweetie's going to read 14 and then 5 through 9.
When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants had a change of heart toward the people. They said, what have we done, letting Israel stop being our slaves? So he prepared his chariots and took his people with him. He took 600 first-quality chariots as well as all the other chariots in Egypt, along with their commanders. Adonai made Pharaoh hard-hearted, and he pursued the people of Israel as they left boldly. The Egyptians went after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his cavalry and army, and overtook them as they were encamped by the sea. Do I have to read the rest of that?
No.
All those funny words.
No.
You know where the sea was.
The Egyptians were going, what have we done? Let's get them back to be our slaves. And then it made a little comment that, Brother George and I have talked about it many times. It says, Adonai hardened Pharaoh's heart. And now we know it was to show all of the Egyptians that he was God, that he was Adonai. He wasn't one of their gods, he was Adonai. But anyway, the Israelites had fear come over them. They got scared. Read 4:10, please.
As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and saw the Egyptians right there, coming after them. In great fear, the people of Israel cried to Adonai.
They cried to Adonai, like so many of us, forgetting the past and only considering what was right in front of them. Then turning from Adonai to complain to, this guy Moses. Read 4:11.
And said to Moses, was it because there weren't enough graves in Egypt that you brought us out to die in the desert? Why have you done this to us, bringing us out of Egypt?
Now that's an interesting question. Why?
Yeah.
But it states way back, Adonai hears their prayers and sends Moses to get them out of Egypt with, guess what? Gold, clothing, and like 13:8 states, fully armed. And now forgetting the cruelty of the slavery from the past, my sweetie's going to read 14:12.
Didn't we tell you in Egypt to let us alone? We'll just go on being slaves for the Egyptians. It would be better for us to be the Egyptian slaves than to die in the desert.
Being scared makes you say some, what is that, unlogical or illogical?
Illogical.
Illogical statements.
In this case,
Leave us as slaves! After they got their freedom, they celebrated, but then they're hollering now, leave us as slaves, let us be! It must not have been all that bad.
You okay?
I can't imagine how Adonai must have felt when he heard those hollering. Moses makes another bold statement in 14:13. Read that, please.
Moses answered the people, stop being so fearful. Remain steady, and you'll see how Adonai is going to save you. He will do it today. Today you have seen the Egyptians, but you will never see them again.
One commentary we read or studied states Moses had a positive attitude. Read 13 again, please.
Moses answered the people, stop being so fearful. Remain steady and see how Adonai is going to save you. He will do it today. Today you have seen the Egyptians, but you will never see them again.
People, you can look at it any way you want. Did you see a positive attitude, or did Moses actually know that Adonai would do something so great that the Hebrews would never have to see those chasing them again? Not after today. Why? Because of 14:14.
Adonai will do battle for you. Just calm yourselves down.
Now, Moses, you might say, had kind of a bold statement. Adonai will do battle for you. Just calm down. Then when you study this, it seems that Moses was begging Adonai to help them. It almost sounds like there is a sentence missing in Moses' writings. Read the first part of 15, please. 14:15.
Adonai asked Moses, why are you crying to me?
You got to understand, when you first studied that, Adonai says to Moses, why are you crying to me? Now read the last part of 15.
Tell the people of Israel to go forward.
Go forward. Stop crying to me, Moses. Have faith and go forward. After all, there was just a little water there. Go forward. And here is what you are to do. 14:16, please.
Lift your staff, reach out your hand over the sea, and divide it in two. The people of Israel will advance into the sea on dry ground.
Adonai tells Moses to do what to do. Now get busy, and here is why. Read 17.
As for me, I will make the Egyptians hard-hearted, and they will march in after them. Thus I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, chariots, and cavalry.
Have you ever seen, or been told before why? Adonai states, I will win glory for myself. Did you understand that? I've never heard a preacher actually say that. He tells Moses, then I will win glory for myself. It wasn't for the Hebrews, Moses, or any of them. It was for Adonai, as he states thus, I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and his army. That's a whole different outlook and a whole different picture that should be seen.
Yeah.
Darkness over Pharaoh and his army, but light for the Hebrews all night. Well, that's what Scripture says. My sweetie's going to read 14:21.
Moses reached his hand out over the sea, and Adonai caused the sea to go back before a strong east wind all night. He made the sea become dry land, and its water was divided in two.
Now, here's a theatrical part. Now, I'm sure George and you people have all seen the movie Moses. When Moses stands next to the water and lifts his hands, both of them up in the air, and they've got a... Here's what we wrote when we found out something. You've seen the movie Moses. Listen to Adonai reach out his hand. Did you notice that? Reach out his hand. That's a singular word. His hand over the sea. It doesn't seem like it was all that theatrical performance that the movie makers tried to portray. And it states Adonai did the job. Water on both sides dried up on dry ground in the middle for the children of Israel to walk on. Well, at least I got one thing right. Pharaoh's army, chariots and all, went in after Adonai's chosen people. 600, maybe 1,000 chariots were going through on dry ground. Then something happened. Read 25.
He caused the wheels of their chariots to break off, so that they could move only with difficulty. The Egyptians said, Adonai is fighting for Israel against the Egyptians. Let's get away from them. I'm out of here.
Did you understand this? Then their chariot wheels started to break off.
Hard to drive.
Can you imagine? The horses would still be pulling those chariots. The riders flying all around with one or maybe both wheels off. People flying all around them, and then they say, oh, this is kind of interesting. They say something like, Adonai is fighting for Israel. I have a question for you. Did they forget the frogs, the gnats, the flies, the boils, the hail, the locusts, just to name a few, and now the Egyptians make that statement, Adonai is fighting for Israel? I thought it was kind of comical.
Were they there the first time? Must have forgotten those 9.
That seems comical. After all the Hebrews get out of the danger, of any water, what? I turn the page. What does Adonai tell Moses? Read 26, please.
Adonai said to Moses, "Reach your hand out over the sea, and the water will return and cover the Egyptians with their chariots and cavalry."
Reach out your hand. Think about something. When would it have been the best time for any country to march in and take over Egypt than right then? You had Pharaoh, but most of his army had been wiped out. His chariots, all of them destroyed, plus his cavalry. But then, did all of them go into the dry ground after the Hebrews? Read 28, please.
The water came back and covered all the chariots and the cavalry of Pharaoh's army who had followed them into the sea. Not even one of them was left.
That states who had followed them into the sea. The Hebrews watched the dead Egyptians float up onto the shore. Then verse 31 makes as much sense as that part in verse 25. The Egyptians said Adonai is fighting for Israel. Now in 1431, we'll read 1431.
When Israel saw the mighty deed that Adonai had performed against the Egyptians, the people feared Adonai, and they believed in Adonai and in his servant Moses.
Okay. Now, I'm not real bright, but when they saw what Adonai did to the Egyptian, then they believed in Adonai and Moses. Again. Think about it. Did they also forget the frogs, the gnats, the flies, etc.? The Exodus, the plunder of the Egyptians, and it took until this event for them to believe in Adonai and Moses? You think maybe that it wasn't just Pharaoh who was hard-headed?
Hard-hearted, yeah.
I know, these guys are hard-headed. Does that give you a hint that over those 430 years, the Hebrews may have started to think more like the Egyptians than what Adonai could or would do for them? That's a weird statement. But think about it. 430 years of being told, being led, being brainwashed. That's even more than 392 years. In other words, the Jews had to be convinced themselves. Now, that's an interesting statement to stop at. The Jews, the Hebrews, God's chosen people, had to be convinced themselves. Because they were, and most likely, well, you'd have to say, they all grew up, were raised under slavery, or at least under the rule of the Egyptian. They started to act like the Egyptians, believe like the Egyptians, get scared like the Egyptians. And then it says, as my sweetie read, then after the water they started to believe in Adonai and Moses. What happened to all that stuff up till then?
Yeah, it's like that, not like they were gone a long time.
There's a lot to think
They
about in
forgot
that.
about it.
Little bit of writing.
Yeah, a little bit that people don't even think about.
I thought it was really actually kind of comical that they forgot about the gnats and the flies and the
No frogs. No
frogs and everything else. And after that event, the Egyptian says, Adonai is fighting for them? Kind of a strange comment, because in all reality, if you look at it, the Hebrews, God's chosen people, pretty much make the same statement. I guess after 430 years of being brainwashed, it's hard to get people to understand the truth.
True.
Now, I guess that's what we did for over 3 years. Get people to understand the truth. That a person by the name of Jerome, a Catholic priest, 391 years ago, made up that J word. And now, think of how difficult it is for the people right now to understand Yeshua, or even accept or believe in the one called Adonai. You think it's an uphill battle? Interesting. Next week, we'll continue.
Yep.
Thank you. And I hope this computer stops going like that. Either that or we're going to go get a new computer. As soon as George gives me the money for it.
Have a good week, guys. Check us out on YouTube. George Nelson Live Facebook. Check us out.
Or on...
Please like and share the Facebook. That's where they're at.
Yeah. But the people can go on...
YouTube. That's what I just said.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh. Sorry.
That's right. Please like and share it. Please join us next Tuesday. Any questions or comments? He'd be happy to answer you. Have a good week, guys.
Bye.